Testing. 1, 2, 3.
We spring back. We shot back. We are back on Backlook Cinema, the podcast. I'm your host, So. That's Z-O or Z-O if you're outside of the U.S. Taking a look back at the movies of yesteryear. It's the 99th episode. Thank you for downloading and streaming. We really appreciate it. You watch movies that I love when I was growing up in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. And if you like this show, then rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser.com, or your favorite podcast app. Finally, please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Mastodon. You can find the details in the show notes. And we're going to talk about this movie. First, before we talk about the movie that I want to talk about, I hope that you totally enjoyed the episode, the bonus episode that was released last week? I'm going to say last week. I'm thinking that I released the bonus episode. No, last week was a special announcement saying I was going to take a break. The bonus episode was 2 weeks ago. So I hope you enjoyed that bonus episode that featured My Streaming Bubble. That was hosted by Jen, and we talked about The Princess Bride. That was on her podcast. I had a great time, and I hope to be able to join her again. And I hope you check out My Streaming Bubble. Now, the movie that we're going to talk about today is A Christmas Story. And what I learned, and what I hope you learned when I talk about this movie, is that it has a branching history. Think of A Christmas Story as a tree, and then from this tree springs forth many branches of stories and tales that are all associated with A Christmas Story. Before A Christmas Story, there was a TV show or a TV movie called The Phantom of the Open Heart. That's kind of a prequel to A Christmas Story. It features all the same characters, and it touches on some story that reaches down to A Christmas Story. And then, of course, there are some sequels, and I didn't realize that A Christmas Story has sequels. For example, what's it called? It's called My Summer Story. And there's another sequel called Ollie Hoppennoodle's Haven of Bliss. So these are all the same stories, the same characters that were introduced in A Christmas Story. And of course, at around 2012, there's A Christmas Story 2. I didn't watch any of these movies, and I definitely was not interested in A Christmas Story 2. But I did watch A Christmas Story Christmas, and it was it had a lot of charm, and I liked that it features many of the same actors that were featured in A Christmas Story that basically made the story popular. And as adults, you get to see them grow up in the 1970s. And I'm going to talk a little bit about A Christmas Story Christmas as I talk about A Christmas Story. Speaking of which, let us get into the opening credits and talk about A Christmas Story. Based on the humorous writings of author Jean Shepherd, this beloved holiday movie follows the wintry exploits of young Ralphie Parker, who spends most of his time dodging a bully, chaperoning his brother Randy, and dreaming of his ideal Christmas gift, an official Red Ryder carbine action 200-shot range model air rifle. Frequently at odds with his cranky dad, the old man, but comforted by his doting mother, Ralphie struggles to make it to Christmas Day with his glasses and his hopes intact. And that was brought to us by Rotten Tomatoes with some light editing by myself. This movie was released November 18th, 1983, produced by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, or MGM, and Christmas Tree Films. It grossed over $20 million in the U.S. and Canada on a $3 million budget, and it had great reviews. This movie was starring Peter Billingsley as Ralphie Parker. He's actually the star of A Christmas Story Christmas, and he has not been in many films because he long ago transitioned from being an actor to a producer. So he's produced a lot of our favorite movies, such as Iron Man. And he has also appeared in Iron Man. And Spider-Man Far From Home as the same character. He played a character called William Ginter Rival. And you might even remember this character. He was a bald guy, or he lost most of his hair, so a balding guy. And he was an engineer who was berated by Obadiah Stane. So one of the classic scenes of Iron Man is when Obadiah Stane is yelling at one of his engineers, or really all of his engineers, but like the main engineer is saying, "Tony Stark built this in a cave," talking about the arc reactor. Like, you guys can't even get together with all of your advanced knowledge and build a giant arc reactor, while Tony Stark was able to do it in a cave with caveman tools. And Peter Billingsley played that engineer that was being yelled at. And he played the same character in Spider-Man Far From Home. He was one of the engineers, one of the employees of Stark Enterprises that left Stark Enterprises or was fired and joined Mysterio and getting revenge on Stark Enterprises for, them getting fired or whatever. So yeah, that's what he's been doing. He's been producing movies and playing bit parts in other movies. So every once in a while, he'll kind of pop up in a movie that he's probably producing and say a couple of lines, and then he's peace out. But in this movie, A Christmas Story Christmas, he was the main guy, and it really, what I liked about the movie is that he's so much like his younger self. Like, he has the same smile and he has the same imagination. They kept a lot of the same tropes from A Christmas Story and infused it into A Christmas Story Christmas. Next up is Melinda Dillon. She played Mother Parker. She's been in Magnolia, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and Harry and the Hendersons. Now, I only seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and I didn't recognize her from being in that movie. Now, she had retired from acting like decades ago, so I was sorry that I didn't get to see her in A Christmas Story Christmas. She was one of the best parts of A Christmas Story. And the reason I didn't recognize her in Close Encounters of the Third Kind is because she has this unique shriek when she gets excited that she uses a lot in A Christmas Story, but not so much in Close Encounters. And so it's just her mannerisms and her speaking. It's just everything about how she portrays Mother Parker was just charming. It was really charming to me, and I found it that it was kind of the actor that replaced her did a wonderful job, but I could sense that missing. Like, I missed that aspect of that character when watching A Christmas Story Christmas. Up next is Darren McGavin. He played the old man Parker. He is the father figure in the movie. He played in Billy Madison, Raw Deal, and most people remember him from Kojak, the Night Stalker. He's a wonderful character actor, and he has a specific manner about him. Like, you recognize him instantly. It's like only he's doing this. this manner of speech and the way he moves about the world. So most old heads remember Darren McGavin from his multitude of guest spots on TV shows and his small roles he had in movies. He's a great character actor. Up next is Scott Schwartz, played as Flick. So he reprises his role in A Christmas Story Christmas as one of Ralphie's best friends. He's also been in The Toy, and he's been in a ton of direct-to-video TV shows and movies. Up next is Gene Shepard. He plays Ralphie as the adult. He's the narrator, the voice of adult Ralphie. Speaking of which, now Gene Shepard is no longer with us. I mean, he was oldish, or a little bit past middle age at the time that he was making A Christmas Story, and The Christmas Story came out obviously in the 1980s. So he did not get to reprise his role in A A Christmas Story Christmas. Chiefly, I don't know, maybe he would have reprised his role as the voice of adult Ralphie on A Christmas Story Christmas. But the thing is, Ralphie is an adult there. And in A Christmas Story Christmas, it is Peter Billingsley who is both narrating the story and he's playing himself he's playing Ralphie as an adult. And what's interesting is that Gene Shepard had a manner of speaking as he is narrating in A Christmas Story. You know, he just had a distinct way of speaking that was distinctly different from the child Ralphie. So obviously, as Ralphie grows, you know, he would mature and his speech would change. And what is interesting is that Peter Billingsley, playing adult Ralphie, as the narrator, he is able to adopt a similar mannerism. So you're not like missing it in the new movie. So he actually kind of sounds like Gene Shepard narrating A Christmas Story Christmas. It's very interesting. I love the way that had worked out. And what's interesting is that as he's playing the adult in the story, he sounds more like his younger self. He sounds more like young Ralphie Parker from the original movie. But as the narrator, he sounds more like Gene Shepard, adult Ralphie, narrating his story. So I thought that was an interesting way to do it. And I like that they did that. And I like that Peter Billingsley was able to do the voice. And I like that they did that because now it doesn't feel like it's missing from the story. And this is important because Gene Shepard, he's been the voice of adult Ralphie in a multitude of stories. So, for example, in My Summer Story, in The Phantom of the Open Heart that I mentioned earlier, the original story that was put to film in the TV movie, and in Ollie Hopnoodle's Haven of Bliss, he plays the narrator, the adult Ralphie, in all of these movies. So that Peter Billingsley is able to pick up the mantle and continue that tradition. I thought that was marvelous. And that's all Gene Shepard. Those are basically all of Gene Shepard's film credits. He is playing adult Ralphie. Up next is Ian Petrella. He played Randy Parker. He's reprised his role from when he did A Christmas Story Christmas. He's also been in Crimes of Passion, and he's been in a bunch of TV shows. Ted Moore played Miss Shields. You know what? I'm not sure if it's pronounced Ted or Teddy. You know what? I think it's pronounced Teddy. So Teddy Moore, she played Miss Shields. She's been in RoboCop Prime Directives. That was a I think it was a limited TV series. And she's been in The Kennedys. And she's been in many TV shows. R.D. Robb played Schwartz, another childhood friend of Ralphie that reprises roles. He's been in A Christmas Story Christmas. He's also been in Matilda and the Brady Bunch movie. Zach Ward reprises his role as Scud Farkas in A Christmas Story Christmas. He plays the bully of Ralphie in A Christmas Story. He's also been in Postal, Transformers, and what I remember him from was an old sitcom that came on that I really like called Titus. Last but not least is Yano Ayana. He played Grover Dill. He is also in A Christmas Story Christmas, reprising his role as the second bully, so you had the main bully with Scud Farkas, and then what did he call the toady or the henchman? That was Grover Dill, and that was played by Yano Ayana. And like I said, he reprises his role. He's also in Better Off Dead and The Blue Iguana. In Better Off Dead, he's the guy that's chasing the main character, asking for $2. He's a paper boy that is hounding the main character over $2 because the main character owes $2 for having his paper delivered. And he's an iconic character in that movie too, but he hasn't appeared in much of anything else. And interesting, I don't know if you heard of the story recently that came out. So this happened around last month, like around 3 weeks ago. Around the time that A Christmas Story Christmas premiered on, I guess it's HBO Max. I can't remember if it was HBO Max or Netflix. But anyway, so this is from TMZ. Owner of A Christmas Story house curses out actor amid home sale. So Yano, who, as I said, was in A Christmas Story, and its subsequent sequel, was cursed out early this month by the owner of the iconic house, which served as the film's setting, according to TMZ. In a recent, this is actually from the New York Post, and they're reporting a TMZ story. In a recently obtained video from TMZ, the 50-year-old actor was on the porch of the house posing with fans when the irate owner, reportedly named Brian Johnson, approached and began his ranting, telling the actor to leave. "Get the F off my house now. Get the F out of here. I'm not kidding," screamed Johnson. "Beat it. Get the F out. Leave now. Get away from my property. Don't ever come here again. Never again. Leave the house now. I'm serious." Now, I'm bleeping myself only because I'm reading from the New York Post and Dave bleeped that out. So, in another clip, Johnson is heard calling the actor a scammer to the passerby. Now, what's interesting about this is that, yes, this is private property. This is this man's home, but it's also a museum. Like, you can visit there now. So it's not like the actor was doing anything untoward. It was some mixed up where the guy thought that Yana was some kind of scammer trying to buy his home, or somehow involved in some kind of page, a GoFundMe, that was scamming people into giving him money so that he could buy the home. Because the home is for sale. Like, if you have the funds, then you can buy the home that is the main set piece for A Christmas Story. And somehow Yano's representative had actually been in contact with the man about buying the house. But when Yano went to the house, the man is calling Yano a scammer or something. And he realized later, he apologized, and he said it was some kind of misinterpretation or miscommunication about all this confusion going on. And later on, the GoFundMe page was taken down. So I don't know if Yano is still trying to buy the house or not, but the house is still for sale. And as I said, you can visit the house. It has a gift shop. It has a museum. It has an online store. It has a whole thing, right? So yeah, you can, if you want, you can go and actually visit the house that was the setting, or at least played the outside role of the house in A Christmas Story. I don't think that they used the same house in the sequel, though. I'm not sure about that. So anyways, moving right along, we're going to talk about the director. This movie was directed by Bob Clark. He's also directed Baby Geniuses, Black Christmas, My Summer Story, which, as I mentioned before, is a sequel to A Christmas Story. But most people know him from his work in Porky's. Porky's, you probably heard your parents or your uncles and your aunties talk about Porky's. Interestingly enough, I have never seen Porky's, but it was the talk of the day when I was growing up. Everybody talked about Porky's. I never actually seen Porky's, but I did watch its spiritual cousin. What was it called? Revenge of the Nerds. I did see that one. But those raunchy sex comedies have issues and complications and problems that would make it difficult to watch or talk about in today's climate. So anyway, moving right along, the screenplay is by Gene Shepard, Leigh Brown, and Bob Clark. A Christmas Story is based on a collection of stories that was published as In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash by Gene Shepard. And he also wrote My Summer Story, Ollie Hop Noodles, Haven of Bliss, and the Great American Road Racing Festival. Leigh Brown wrote My Summer Story and A Christmas Story Live, and Bob Clark wrote Porky's, Baby Geniuses, and My Summer Story. Up next is the music by Paul Zaza and Carol Zitter. They also made music for Porky's, Prom Night, and Murder by Decree. So that's it for opening credits. If you're enjoying the show, remember that you can get t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, face masks, jerseys, and more at our website, backlickcinema.com/shop. So, as I've been saying all this time, Christmas is coming soon. Is it too late to order to get it by Christmas? Probably, but order them anyway. Also, there are also links to Teespring and TeePublic. I'm pretty sure TeePublic has got a sale going on right now where you can get things for excellent discounts. So go check that out. And the pint glasses are only available at teespring.com. So go and check those out. And that's about it. And up next, we're going to talk about my favorite parts. And I'm back and going to talk about my favorite parts of A Christmas Story. As I said, this is my favorite Christmas movie. And what I really loved about this movie was the overall style of the movie. It's a movie where the narrator is taking you through the story. He's describing events. And some people, I think it's interesting how when you have a narrator and he's describing events as you're watching it in the movie. Now, it could be done in such a way where the narrator feels totally unnecessary. It's like I'm watching it. I don't need you to tell me what I'm saying. I'm watching it. But because it's Gene Shepard and because he's narrating in a particular style, like his voice has a particular, I don't know, it just has a character to it that draws you in. It's real comfortable. You love listening to it. And then it's like the descriptions that he gives as he's talking about these events is charming. It adds to the humor. It's like, so you're laughing at what you're seeing on screen, and then you're also laughing at how the narrator's talking about it. It's almost like it's rude to talk in a movie theater, but it's fun to talk about. But if you're at home and you're watching something on television and you're watching something that you're watching for the umpteenth time, and then you're laughing and joking with your friends about what you're watching on the screen, then that's totally acceptable. And that's kind of the feeling that you get as the narrator is talking and drawing you in. So the narrator is actually one of my favorite parts of the movie. And then the other part is the main thrust of the movie is that Ralphie wants a particular toy for Christmas. And we've all had that feeling. Well, most of us have had that feeling growing up. Like you're young and you know to expect toys at Christmas time. Around November, you start getting on your best behavior because you're trying to get those things that you want. Like at that time when even if you don't believe in Santa Claus, you know that your behavior is paramount. Your behavior will determine the quality of the presents that you get. And Ralphie takes on this quality of trying to behave so that he can get the present that he really wants. At this time, he's like 9 years old. He still believes in Santa Claus, and he wants Santa to bring him this most wanted gift. And the movie does a great job of conveying this feeling of want and need over the thing. What Ralphie wants most in the world is the official Red Ryder carbine action 200 shot range model air rifle. That's how you say it, because he says it like that throughout the film. Sometimes he adds a little bit extra, like he adds that it has a thing that tells time. But mostly when he goes to Santa Claus, that's his spiel. What does he want? He wants the official Red Ryder carbine action 200 shot range model air rifle. And he says that throughout the whole movie. It just flows off the tongue that he wants it so bad. And he goes to all kinds of, like, he believes in Santa, but at the same time he knows it's his parents that are getting the gifts. So because I guess he's in that transition period, because there is a scene where he has the Red Ryder ads, and he hides these ads in places where his parents can see them. So he takes one of the ads and he hides it in his father's newspaper, and he takes another ad and he hides it in Look magazine, because he knows his mom is going to be reading that magazine, and then she'll come across the ad. He's doing all sorts of devious plots to put it in his parents' mind that he wants the Red Ryder BB gun. Another thing I really liked about the movie were they had these imagination sequences. So Ralphie would just start to stare off into space, and then he'll start imagining scenarios about, depending on whatever the situation is. So at one point, he is writing an essay about what he wants for Christmas, and he turns in the essay to his teacher, and when he turns in the essay, he starts imagining that the teacher is so impressed with his essay. Like, he imagines himself as this famous author, or a genius author, and she turns it in and she's overwhelmed and overcome by his prose. And she goes to the chalkboard and she writes A+++++ on this essay about his desire for the Red Ryder BB gun. Or there's another scenario where his parents, they shoot down, like when he first asks for the Red Ryder BB gun, they ask him what he wants for Christmas, and he blurts it out. And he wanted to be subtle, but he wants it so bad he can't be subtle, and he blurts it out. And then his parents shoot it down, like, you'll shoot your eye out. And that's the blocking motion of them blocking his desires. And so he goes into an imagination where he imagines himself a cowboy, and his home is assailed by Bad Bart, and they're in the Old West. They're frontiersmen, and Bad Bart and his criminal gang are harassing his family, and they're crawling around his home. And he takes his Red Ryder BB gun and he starts tagging these bad guys. He's like, he shoots them all down as they're assailing his family and his mother and father, and so grateful that he saved the family. And he couldn't have done it without his Red Ryder BB gun. So he goes into this, they're like fantasy fits during the movie. So those, I like that. I like that was in the movie. Darren McGavin, he's just great in this movie. They all do a bang up job in as far as acting, but Darren McGavin does special commendation, because he's funny because basically his character is, he's at war with everything. He's at war with his car. He's at war with the heater in his house, the furnace. He's at war with the furnace. He's always trying to at war with, basically trying to fix things up. So at one point he's at war with his wife over a lamp that he won, this special award. So he's constantly having these things that eat at him that he has to fight or fix or whatever. He was talking about his car at one point, and he said that the son of a bitch would freeze up in the middle of the summer on the equator because he had such a hard time with his car. He's described as having a tapestry of obscenities. So that particular comment, tapestry of obscenities, came about because there was at one point, okay, so the scene is, this is one of my favorite scenes, and it'll lead to the tapestries of obscenity comments. So when it is a classic scene, it is one of the most iconic scenes in most of filmdom. So his family is driving down in the father, I think it was an Oldsmobile, the father's Oldsmobile or whatever car it was, and the car breaks down. I think they're coming from Christmas shopping. The car breaks down, so the father, he has to go out and he's going to change the tire. He imagines himself. And this is the narrator describing that his father imagined himself in Indy 500 pit crew, and so he always wants to time himself and how long it takes to change a tire. And so he goes out to change it, and then his mom tells Ralphie to go out and help his father change the tire. And this is a real thrill for Ralphie. You know, he gets to go and hang out with his dad as his dad does. One of his favorite things, apparently, is changing the tire. So his father starts to change the tire. He pulls off the hubcap. If you don't know what that is, they used to put a cap on the end of tires so that the bolts were not exposed. And so that's called a hubcap. Hands that to Ralphie, and then he starts to remove the bolts. He puts the bolts in the hubcap. So far, so good. A wise thing to do. You just don't want to, it's like the ground is covered in snow. It's wintertime. You just don't want to put your hubcaps in the snow or put your bolts in the snow. You know, they might get lost. So put the bolts in the hubcap. So in Ralphie's father enthusiasm in changing a tire, at one point he swings his arm back and accidentally knocks the hubcap full of bolts out of Ralphie's hand. Now, Ralphie has not done anything wrong. So, and really his father has not done anything wrong. It's just really an unfortunate incident. But Ralphie realizes the gravity of this situation, because it's not that the hubcaps are going to get lost. It's the hubcaps are black and they're surrounded by snow. So finding the hubcaps will be a fairly simple affair. It's that he knows that his father is trying to change the tire as quickly as he can, and having to scour around and gather the hubcaps again will slow his father's time. This is an important event, changing the tire. So the father knocks the hubcap, which causes the bolts to fly in a bunch of directions. And this is where the scene slows down. The camera slows down. Things are going in slow motion. There's a zoom in on Ralphie's father's face and a zoom in on Ralphie's face. And then Ralphie says, "Oh, fudge." And then the narrator steps in and said, "But it's not fudge. It's the grandfather of all curse words. It's the F dash dash dash." That's one of the funniest scenes I've seen in almost any movie. So of course you know what word we're talking about. So they finish up. They finish changing the tire. They kind of skip to when they get back in the car. So actually first the father tells Ralphie to get in the car because he's shocked. He's totally shocked by what he has heard his son say. So he said, just get in the car. And Ralphie goes in the car, and the father finishes up changing everything, and he gets in the car, and he says, "Do you know what your son said?" He says to his wife, "Do you know what your son said?" And lean closer and whispers in her ear, and she screams one of her shrieks that I told you about. One of the shrieks she lets out. And then later on, they have to. So this is leading up to the comment about the obscenities. So they go into the house. They cut to the scene where Ralphie has a giant bar of soap in his mouth. His mother's literally washing Ralphie's mouth out with soap. So he's got this bar of soap stuck in his mouth. And so she asks him, "Where did you hear this?" Like, where did you hear these words? And that's when the narrator steps in and says, like, he regularly hears his father's scream a tapestry of obscenities hanging over Lake Michigan. He hears everything from his father, but he doesn't want, for whatever reason, he doesn't want to tell the truth. He doesn't want to fess up. So he kind of messed up. He blames it on one of his best friends. He blames it on Swartz. And so his mom calls Mrs. Swartz, and she says, "Do you know what Ralphie said?" And you can actually kind of hear Miss Swartz on the other end of the phone. And she's like, "What?" And she whispers into the phone. And then Swartz says, what? She starts screaming, and she says he probably heard it from he probably heard it from his father, because even she knows that Ralphie's father is like he's cursing all the time, and she says no. Ralphie's mother says no. He heard it from your son. And she starts screaming again. You can hear her screaming in the other line. She's screaming so bad. And then she calls Schwartz over. And then you can hear Schwartz being beaten for no reason from the other side of the phone. And then Ralphie's mom gets embarrassed and then hangs up the phone. And then later on, the narrator describes that moment as Schwartz getting his. So kind of a messed up thing for Ralphie to do. But that's exactly what happens. So, one of the other iconic is the word I was looking for. Iconic things that happen is that Ralphie's brother, when on their way to school, the weather is getting cold. Ralphie's mother dresses up his younger brother in his winter gear. Now it is several layers, like many, many layers of warm clothing to keep this little boy warm. And by the time you get everything on, he's got this, I guess, reinforcing pants on and this huge winter coat. By the time he gets everything on, he's like a doll that can't put his arm down, and she starts crying, and he starts crying, and his mom goes, "What's wrong?" And he says, "I can't put my arms down." He's walking around with his arms outstretched. "I can't put my arms down." And she says, "Well, you're just going to have to stay like that until you get to school." And then he wraps his head up in a scarf so that he could barely see. And at one point, when they're being chased by bullies, he falls down and he can't get up. He can't get up because he can't use his arms to lift himself up. He needs his brother and his brother's friends to help him get up. There's also a point where he falls down. They're being chased by bullies. The bullies knock Randy down, and Randy just kind of he lays there for one thing because he can't move his arms anyway. And the narrator describes that the narrator describes it as Randy laying there like a slug because that's his only defense. So excuse me. So just crazy things that happen. One of the other great moments is the triple dog dare scene. So, before I get to the triple dog dare scene, interesting that this movie takes place around 1940s. So as you know, in the 1940s, it was filmed in the 1980s, but this setting is the 1940s, and it's the 1940s in Illinois. So what's interesting about it is that there are a few scenes of the school, of Ralphie's elementary school. And what's interesting about this elementary school is that there are a few black kids in the elementary school. There are like 2 or 3 of them in his class. And I thought to myself, they had desegregated schools in Illinois in the 1940s. Now I didn't look it up. But this may have been a particularly progressive district, but it would have been exceedingly rare to have it. Obviously, they didn't have any speaking roles or anything of that nature, but they were there. So that was, I found that mildly surprising. So anyway, onto the triple dog dare. So in this scene, it's for whatever reason, I get confused as to who is who. As many times as I've seen this film, I still don't know who is who. But anyway, one of Ralphie's friends challenges another about sticking his tongue on a frozen utility pole. I guess it's a phone pole. And it would have to be. It's not going to be an electric pole. But I don't want to throw out the wrong names. I think it's Schwartz who was dared to, I think it's I don't know. I think it's Schwartz who gets his tongue stuck on a pole, but I can't be sure. So anyway, one of the friends challenges him. He says, first he says, like, my old man told me that if, you stick your tongue to a frozen pole, your tongue would get stuck there. And I think his horse says, no, it's not going to happen. You're not going to get your tongue stuck on a pole. And then the friend says, I dare you to put your tongue on a pole. And his horse is like, no, I'm not going to, that's stupid. I'm not going to stick my tongue on a pole. And it is stupid. You don't stick your tongue on a pole. And then he skips all the way to, I triple dog dare you. And that's when the narrator steps in and is like, oh no, he did a faux pas. He skipped the double dog dare and went directly to the triple dog dare. And see, that's what makes it funny. That's what I mean by the commentary that makes it funny. He's kind of like describing the events of what's going on, but he's using such colorful language that it makes it fun to watch. So he's been triple dog dare. So it seems like he's, after being triple dog dare, he's backed into a corner. Now it's weird that you have to do this now. Now that you've been dared to do something and it's been tripled, now that you have to do it. So he accepts the dare. He sticks his tongue on the frozen phone pole. And then when he tries to get off the pole, he can't do it. So this is one of the most cringy moments in all of cinema because it looks so real. He for real has his tongue stuck on a frozen telephone pole and he can't get it off. And this is recess. So they're outside playing. So they're playing during recess. And you got this kid tongue stuck on the telephone pole. He can't get off. Then the bell ring, signaling the end of recess. The kids start going back into the school. And the kid starts crying. He's like, you can't leave me. Don't leave me. I'm stuck. You can't leave me. He's talking as best he can because, he can't really use his tongue. But he says, you can't leave me. I'm stuck. You can't leave me. But all the kids go in and then he looks at Ralph. Ralph is one of the last kids to go into the school, go back in school. And he's like, come on, Ralph, come on, you can't leave me. And Ralph just looks at him like, the bell rung, And Ralph goes back into the school, right? And then so the kids are inside and the teacher's looking and she noticed that the student is missing. And it's like, where's Horse? And somebody points outside. She looks, she's like, oh my God, because she sees that Horse is stuck to the phone pole. So she has to call the fire department. The fire department comes in and they free him from the pole. Apparently they had to do some chopping. I figured they could have used some warm water, but no, I think they went directly to chopping because now his tongue is bandaged up. So now he's talking with tongue on his bandage. Oh no, it's not. So I got it wrong. I think it was Swartz that did the daring and it was Flick that had his tongue stuck to the pole. So now I'm looking at my notes and it was Flick that had his tongue on the pole. But anyways, still it was cringy and it was funny. And I like how this is just what kids be up to. Just kids be doing stuff like this. I've done a bunch of crazy things when I was a kid. And this even when I was watching this, I was already a child. I was already doing these types of things, just getting into putting myself in bodily harm, not realizing just how much trouble I was putting my physical health in, my physical safety. So I talked about Randy laying like a slug because it was his only defense. There's a point where the narrator describes the three types of kids in school. There was the bully, the toady, and the nameless rabble. And Ralphie he was a member of the nameless rabble. There's another there's a theme that goes throughout the movie that involves the Bumpus Hounds. The Bumpus Hounds, I guess you would call that they were the Chekhov's gun in this movie. So they would appear in the movie. They would the Bumpus Hounds were a bunch of, I can't remember what type of dogs they are. Hound dogs, I guess. They look more like bloodhounds. So the Bumpers, they were a family that lived next door to Ralphie's family, and they had a bunch of dogs, just a bunch of dogs, and they were constantly running around. It's like, for whatever reason, they're rarely fenced indoors at the Bumpers house. You never actually see the Bumpers house. You only see the Bumpers hounds, and they have gotten out of their enclosure and they start running around. They're like 6 or 7 of these giant hound dogs, or not hound dogs, but bloodhounds, that go around, and basically they're not like harassing people on purpose. They're just out, and they're just happy that they're out about in the neighborhood, and a constant like foil for Ralphie's father. So you see them come out, harass Ralphie's father, and then Ralphie's father basically had to shoo them away. So they're funny because of when the gun goes off, when the Chekhov's gun go off with the Bumpers hound, that it's a delight. So we're gonna put a pin in that. Another major part of this movie is the major prize. So you've probably seen this major prize somewhere out in the ether. The major prize is something that Ralphie's father got. I don't know what contest he enters. He kind of alludes to, I don't even know if he alludes to whatever contest that this major prize is related to. It's just that he got a telegram and he says he won a major award, and he's so excited for this major award. And then later on, he gets this giant box. It's a giant wooden box, which I guess that's how they deliver things in the 1940s. They use giant wooden box for all purposes. I guess they hadn't really perfected the making of cardboard, because that would have been a much more appropriate delivery system than using a wooden box for most things. Like, I can't remember at any time I received anything from the mail that was in a wooden box. So he goes about, he gets his crowbar or whatever, opens the box. He's like, the box is filled with hay that's used to protect whatever's inside it. But it just seems to be mostly hay. It's a huge box. It's bigger and wider than he is. And it's laying flat on the floor of his living room. And he has to go in the box to look for something, whatever is supposed to be in there. And he finally brings it out. And it's a woman's leg that is in not a real leg. It's like a statue leg. It's a statue. It's a woman's leg statue, and it is in what you call it, stocking. It's like a lace stocking, and wearing a high heel. Just a leg in lace stocking, wearing a high heel. That's it, and it's flesh color. And then he gets the other piece of it. And the other piece of it is the lampshade. So his major award, his major prize, is a woman's leg lampshade. He is fully delighted. His wife is horrified. He immediately wants to put it in the window and plug it up and see what it looks like from the outside. His wife is aghast. She does not want to put this horrible looking thing in the window where everybody could see it. She doesn't even want it in she doesn't even want to light it up, this is something that she would rather put in her attic, if at all. If it has to be in the house, then it needs to be stored in the attic somewhere. But Ralphie's father wants to put it on full display in the window where everybody can see it. And that whole thing. So that basically starts off something. It starts off something in Ralph's mother that comes to fruition later on in the movie. Another funny thing is when he gets the box, it says fragile on the box, and Ralphie's father pronounced it fragile. It must be Italian. And when he goes to plug in the lamp, they didn't have surge protectors in the 1940s. They had extensions, and basically they had I don't know what you would call them, but it was like think of the surge protector you have now. It's large, it's long usually, and the outlets on the surge protector is fairly spaced out. They had something like this in the 1940s, but instead of being long, it was kind of a block. It was a block that had outlets on each side of it. So it's like you would take this block, it would be like a four-sided block, and one side was obviously to plug into your wall outlet, and then you would have like 4 or 5 four blocks that you could plug your plugs into. Is it 4? Well, 5. It'd be 5. It's a 1, 2, because it's you know what a cube looks like. I don't have to explain it to you. You know what I'm talking about. But anyways, you could safely use this cube to plug in like 3 or 4 appliances. But what some people did, what Ralphie's father did, is that he plugged another cube into the cube that he already used. It's only safe for those like 4 plugs, but when you plug in another cube, and you plug in like 6 more devices, or plug in another cube and plug in 6 more devices, then you're going to have something that's extraordinarily unsafe and will, in all likelihood, cause the circuit breaker to go off in your house. If you're lucky, it'll trip the circuit breaker. If you're not lucky, it'll burn your house down. So Ralphie's father obviously has more than one block, and he tries to plug the lamp in. It triggers the circuit breaker. So he resets the circuit breaker. He unplugs some random thing that's plugged into the block, and he plugs in his lamp. Circuit breaker does not trip. And then he puts it in a window, and Ralphie, the narrator, describes it as electric sex. And even as a child, he loves this lamp. Another thing about the lamp is that Ralphie's mother has such disdain for this lamp. One of the things that she does is like they get the lamp before they go out for Christmas shopping. And one of the things she does before they leave the house, she turns off the lamp. And the father's like, why are we turning off the lamp? And she says, well, you don't want to waste electricity. And they leave the house. Every single light in this house is on except for that lamp. She hates this lamp so much. So, what else do I like about it? I talked about some of the fantasy elements in there. I liked all the fantasy elements. One of the things that Ralphie tries to do to get his teacher on board with what he wants for Christmas, his essay that he wrote is he's constantly bribing the teacher. So like, for instance, while the other students, they might give her 1 apple, and Ralphie brings her an entire fruit basket. And then there was something else that he gives her that's like really ostentatious for a 9-year-old. But and he receives a bad grade anyway. So this ties into one of the fantasy elements. So I think he gets like a C, and then at the bottom she writes, "You'll shoot your eye out." So he's dejected. After all this bribery, he gets a C plus. So after all this bribery, he gets a C plus grade, and then he goes into a fantasy where his teacher is dressed up as a witch, like the witch from The Wizard of Oz. And his mother is there in the classroom, and she's dressed like a harlequin. And they're singing to him. They're like, "You'll shoot your eye out. You'll shoot your eye out. You'll shoot your eye out." And now he's dejected. Like he is a broken child. And it's like he doesn't know what he's going to do with himself, because now it seems that he's not going to get his Christmas present. It's like everyone that he has approached to get his the Red Ryder BB gun has basically rejected him and told him that he'd shoot his eye out. Even when he went to Santa said that, "You'll shoot your eye out, kid." And so there's Santa at the mall. That's what I meant, which is another iconic moment. But there are lots of these moments that I liked about the movie. So he's walking home from school, basically having been rejected on every front. Basically, he has nowhere else to go about how to get this thing that he wants for Christmas. And then as he's walking home dejected, he gets hit in the face with a snowball and he looks up, it's the main bully, Scud Farkas. And Ralphie has taken just about all he could take. Like any other day, he would just run away. And it has shown us throughout the film. Anytime he's come across his bully, he'll run away, or if the bully happens to grab him, he'll cry uncle. But today was not the day that he could be messed with. So, after Farkas throws a snowball at Ralphie's face, and, you can see the countenance on Ralphie's face just drops, and Farkas is like, what are you going to do? You're going to cry? You're going to cry? And then Ralphie charges the bully, and the bully is totally surprised by this attack. So Ralphie charges Farkas, he tackles him to the ground, and then he starts beating the living daylights out of Farkas. And then it's just a garbled mess coming out of his mouth. And it's like he doesn't care about anything anymore. And he's just beating the crap out of his head. And there's no like hard profanity in this film. So they replace hard profanity with I guess what you would hear like if you're watching a Charlie Brown cartoon and the teacher's talking and the teacher's going womp 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 womp. They're doing something like that. The actors are basically saying gobbledygook instead of actual curse words. So there's a string of gobbledygook coming out of Ralphie's mouth, cursing at the bully that had been tormenting him this whole time, and at the same time he's not getting his Christmas present. So his friends try to stop him. He pushes his friends, he knocks his friends down, continues beating the bully, and then finally it wasn't his friend, it was the toady. He pushes the toady down. And finally one of his friends goes, they get his mom, and she pulls Ralphie off of the bully, and that's when he starts crying. And because he's a broken child, she brings him home, and then and now he's worried because at the same time that he has beaten the living crap out of this child, he is also now in trouble with his father for not only getting to fight, but for all the cursing that he did that his mom heard. But then when his father gets home, his mother has pity on him, and she actually protects Ralphie she talks about the fight. She did say Ralphie gets into a fight, but she doesn't mention everything else. She doesn't mention everything that she witnessed that had happened, and safeguards Rocky from what punishment that his father might have. So from that point on, he feels that he and his mother has a special relationship because she was basically looking out for him. So that was real cool. Skipping all the way to Christmas. So Christmas is awesome because it reminds me of the Christmas that I used to have when I was growing up. And if I feel like those types of Christmases, at least for me, are fewer and farther away now. It's like I'm not having as many of those Christmas moments as I used to when I was growing up. So that's a hard nostalgic moment when I see it in this movie. So, they have the big Christmas tree. They have the I did skip the scene that where Ralphie's mom destroys the lamp and says it was an accident. And at first his father tries to fix it and he couldn't, so he buries it out back. So, but forever suspects his wife of destroying his lamp. But going back to Christmas, so this Christmas morning, they wake up their parents, they go downstairs, they got all the presents there, they start opening presents, they toss the socks like I used to do when I was a boy because I wasn't interested in socks. I only wanted the toys. And Randy's opening up presents and is going, that's mine, like, because everything is his as far as he's concerned. Everything is his. One of the presents that Ralphie opens up is, and another great moment is it's a pink bunny suit. And the narrator, adult Ralphie, says that Aunt Clara's gift was indicative of that. She believed that Ralphie was a 4-year-old girl, like for his entire life. Even though she believes that Ralphie is a 4-year-old girl, she still managed to make the outfit Ralphie's size. So the outfit is only slightly larger than Ralphie is. It's a pink bunny suit with bunny slippers. And it's funny because when he gets it, he immediately doesn't want to put this thing on. He would feel humiliated putting this thing on, but his mom makes him put it on. So he goes upstairs, he puts it on, and he's like in a constant state of humiliation. And then his father allows him to take it off. So they open up all of their presents. They all got pretty neat presents, but of course, Ralphie does not get what he wants for Christmas. And he doesn't expect it because he's been told by everybody, including Santa Claus at the mall, that he would shoot his eye out. And then his father pulls him aside. He says he thinks that there's one more present behind the couch. Ralphie goes behind the couch and he immediately knows what it is because it's long. It's a long box. It's a flat, long box. So he rips open the present. It's the BB gun that he's always wanted for Christmas. So he's elated. But what's funny is that when he gets the BB gun, he goes outside in his pajamas. His mother has to remind him to put on shoes. So he puts on his boots, he goes outside, and he sets up the target that comes with the BB gun, aims at the target, and the thing that happened that everybody warned him about owning a BB gun actually happens. He shoots at the target. The BB ricochets and hits him near his eye. Doesn't actually hits him in the eye. He's wearing his glasses. So he hits and it doesn't actually hit his glasses. But it hits near his eye. It hits his cheek near his eye. And he's shocked, and the narrator goes, "I actually did it. I shot my eye out." But he didn't literally shoot his eye out, but the wound is close enough to his eye that, if his mom finds out about this incident, then he will never have his BB gun again. So he has to, and then it knocked his glasses off. So now he has to find his glasses, and he's looking around, and because it's the snow and his glasses, they're like clear glass. It's hard to find glasses in the snow, and he steps on his glasses. And he's like, "Oh no, I stepped on my glasses," and the frames are all cracked because the glasses are made of glass and not plastic like they are nowadays. And then he says, "Maybe I could fake it," but he puts the glasses on, and he can't fake it because they're obviously broken. So now he has to concoct a story. He can't let his mom know that he shot his eye out with the rifle and the BB. So he starts to concoct a story. He makes up the story that he's walking around, an icicle fell and hit him near his eye. So he works some he starts crying. He runs into the house crying, and he tells his mom about this fictitious icicle that hit him on his cheek. And his mom says, "Well, you got to be careful, Ralphie. Icicles are dangerous." And for the first and only time in this movie, he breaks the fourth wall. He looks directly at the camera, and the narrator says, "I had pulled it off." And he kind of raises his eyebrow at the camera to let the audience in on that he had pulled it off. Then he looks back at his mom, and he starts crying again about the icicle that hit him in the cheek. The icicle, not the BB. Well, Ralphie's mom, she's in the midst of preparing the Christmas dinner. They're gonna have, it looks like Thanksgiving in that house. It's like they have the turkey, they have all the fixings, they have all the side dishes. It's gonna be a fantastic Christmas dinner. It's the middle of the day. The turkey is basically done, and Ralphie's father's trying to eat pieces of the turkey, but he doesn't get a chance because he's always getting caught trying to sneak a piece of the turkey. Like, he doesn't want to wait until dinner. And then it's probably maybe an hour or two away of them actually sitting down to eat. But somebody, I think it was Ralphie or Ralphie's mom, they left the house wide open. And the Bunkus hounds had come back, that the giant bloodhounds, and they've come back, and they've noticed the turkey, and they knocked the turkey off the table, and they ravaged the turkey. They totally ravaged the turkey. And everybody is aghast and disappointed and just shocked. Everything is their whole plan for Thanksgiving is total, not Thanksgiving, for Christmas is trashed. So Ralphie's father is resilient. So in his resiliency, he just tells everybody get dressed. I mean, he's disappointed more than anybody in that house. And his wife is just shrieking because of all the work she put in to make the turkey. But he's like, everybody get dressed. We're going out to eat. So they go to the Chop Suey Palace, owned and operated by Chinese immigrants. And since they are the only patrons of this restaurant, the only ones there, they try to sing Deck the Halls. But they can't quite get it. Because if you know anything about the Chinese languages, or most Asian languages, they don't have the L sound. The closest that many of them get when they first start to learn English is the R sound. So instead of, and it's funny because the owner knows how to pronounce the L sound. He's been speaking English long enough, so he's practiced at pronouncing the L sound. So they try to sing Deck the Halls, and it's like, and they go fa ra 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 ra, and the owner goes, no, not fa ra 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 ra, fa la 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 la. Say it like that, and but the wait staff just can't quite get it. So so he says, never mind, just go and get the food, and so the food is ready. They bring out, so instead of a Christmas turkey, they have a Christmas duck, but the way they had cooked it. They had cooked the entire duck with the head and everything. So they have the entire duck there. And Ralphie's mother, she shrieks, and Ralphie and his brother, they laugh. It's the funniest thing they have ever seen, is that the whole turkey is cooked from the head all the way down to the tail, or the tail end of the turkey. Like normally when Americans cook fowl, we tend to chop off the neck and cook the fowl that way. But at this particular Chinese restaurant, they did not do that. So she's shrieking because the head and neck are still attached to the rest of the body. And and the wait staff and the owner's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Are you guys all right? What's wrong with the duck? And so Ralphie's father is struggling to try to explain it as tactful as he could about how it's unusual for them to, cook the neck and head of the duck with the rest of the turkey. So he's trying to explain it. And then he says, well, it's because the duck is smiling. You see, the duck is smiling. That's how he puts it. He's saying that the reaction that his wife is giving is because the duck is smiling. And so I don't know if it's the main waiter or the owner, they take out the cleaver and they cut the neck off at the base of the neck. And they take it off, and then they clap. The whole family claps, and they have, and that's basically the end of the movie. They have the Christmas dinner at a Chinese restaurant because the Butkus dog, the Chekhov's gun, had went off all over their turkey, and so that's it. And it's my favorite Christmas movie, and I actually love this movie. Now I've seen a couple of Christmas movies that have given this movie a run for its money. So like I've seen a Santa Claus that's really good one. Elf is a really good Christmas movie. Obviously, like A Charlie Brown Christmas or the live action version of The Grinch That Stole Christmas. Those are great Christmas movie. And then one that I've seen recently is not A Christmas Story Christmas, because even though it was good, it's more charming than it is good. It's more kind of like a nostalgia thing. So I really can't say it's a great movie. It's charming if you've seen the original. I don't think that movie actually stands up well on its own. But the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, that was pretty awesome. It was fun. It was funny. It was charming. It was really well put together. So if you haven't seen that one, go check that one out. That one definitely gives A Christmas Story a run for its money in my mind. But I really, truly enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. So that's it for my favorite parts. And now let's move on to the trivia. So now, the trivia for A Christmas Story. There was a surprising amount of trivia that was available for this movie. So let's talk about it. For the scene in which Flick's tongue sticks to the flagpole, a hidden suction tube was used to safely create the illusion that his tongue had frozen to the metal. Now, this is important because for the longest time, I had wondered how they did that scene, because I was thinking that in one instant they could have used a fake tongue, but when you watch their movie, it's definitely a real tongue, and it's definitely his tongue, and it's so squeamish. So that's how they did it. They used for one thing, the pole wasn't actually frozen. For another thing, they drilled a hole in it's not a real flagpole. They just drilled a hole in it. It was the hole was hollow. They drilled a hole in it, and they added some kind of suction feature so that it would pull on his tongue. So when he pulled away from the pole, his tongue would stretch the way it would if it were frozen to the pole. So that's a masterpiece of practical effects. I'm actually relieved that I found out that that's how that happened. Darren McGavin ad-libbed the profane rants while fighting with the furnace. He said he speaks gibberish the entire time because it was almost impossible for him to ad-lib angry words without actual profanity. He did this in order to ensure a PG rating. So, I mean, it's hard to describe how he sounds when he's speaking this gibberish, but it's almost like if you hear somebody saying cotton picking Frederican, something like that, and going on and on. You kind of have to see the movie to see how he does it, but it's amazing. According to Peter Billingsley, young Ralphie, in the DVD documentary, the nonsensical ramblings that Ralphie exclaims while beating up Scut Farkus were scripted word for word. So young Ralphie does the same thing when he's beating up the bully, as I explained earlier. Just a bunch of gibberish coming from his mouth. But his were scripted. So that's amazing that they were able to script that, because it is gibberish, but the way he delivers it sounds like it's ad-lib. In 2005, the 19th century Victorian home used for the exterior shots of the Parker family home, that's obviously Ralphie Parker, was put up for auction on eBay. The Cleveland, Ohio home, which was purchased for $150,000 by an avid fan of the film named Brian Jones. Jones then spent the following year restoring the home to the way it looked on screen. The exterior was completely restored, and the interior was renovated to match the interior of the home shown in the movie. Parts of the interior were actually filmed in a Toronto studio. On November 25th, 2006, the home finally opened its doors as a tourist attraction. Jones spent close to $500,000 in preparation for this grand opening. In addition, he also purchased a house across the street and converted it to a gift shop and museum dedicated to the film and the house. According to Peter Billingsley, not many major studios were interested in a story about a little boy in the 1940s who wanted a BB gun for Christmas. Billingsley said the studio agreed to make this film if Bob Clark agreed to make a horror film, which I'm pretty sure he did. I'm not sure which horror film that was. Probably Black Christmas. I don't know. I don't get into many horror films. The film was released just before Thanksgiving and became a surprise hit. By the time Christmas rolled around, the movie had already been pulled from most theaters because it had been played out. After complaints were lodged at the theater owners and the studios, the film played on select screens until after the first of the year in 1984. The weird thing is that I don't remember this movie being out in 1984. Probably because I was, 12 years old, so I wasn't that cognizant of movies or whatever. But let's see. I'm thinking. I remember watching it on TV a lot. Like when it first showed up on TV, I just watched it on TV all the time. So that is my attachment to it. For the film's final scene in the Chinese restaurant, director Bob Clark wanted to get real reaction from actress Melinda Dillon. She was the only cast member who was purposely given the wrong script and had no idea that the roasted duck brought out by the waiters would still have its head attached. Dillon was surprised upon seeing it and genuinely startled when the waiter chopped off the head. So what's funny about this is that she does one of her shrieks in this scene. Like she shrieks when the duck is brought out, and she's shrieking and she's laughing at the same time. So when she shrieks in this movie, these are her shrieks. This is from her real personality and not something that she does to maintain character. The family eats meatloaf, bread, cabbage, and mashed potatoes for dinner every night. The only time they didn't eat it was the Christmas day when they went to Boling's, or the Chinese restaurant. Due to this film's popularity, the Daisy Rifle Company has started producing Red Ryder BB guns for sale during the Christmas season. It has become one of Daisy's best-selling rifles. Teddy Moore was 8 months pregnant at the time of filming. Miss Shields could not be shown as an unmarried mother in the 1940s, so the filmmakers padded the rest of her to match her belly, making her to just appear stout. They did an excellent job because I had no idea, and she looks great. She looks great as she looks nostalgic. That's the word for it. She just looks nostalgic. Nostalgic in that outfit and in that costume they put her in. They did an excellent job. And I'm also glad they didn't try to fire her because she was pregnant. The film setting is a town in Indiana, but was actually filmed in Cleveland, Ohio. To find an American city resembling an Indiana town of the 1940s, director Bob Clark sent his location scouts to 20 cities before selecting Cleveland. Director Bob Clark mentions in a commentary on the 2003 DVD that he worked with writer Gene Shepard for nearly 10 years on the concept of a Christmas Story before the film was made. Red Ryder was a character from comic books and radio in the 1930s and 40s, akin to popular Western heroes like Roy Rogers, Gene Aubry, and the Lone Ranger. According to director Bob Clark, Jack Nicholson was given the script and was very much interested in the role of Mr. Parker, the old man. However, Clark didn't learn of this until later, and the studio didn't want to pay Nicholson's fee anyway, which would have doubled the budget. Regardless, Clark said that Darren McGavin was still the better choice and was born to play the role, and I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with this sentiment. Peter Billingsley, at the age of 12, was given real chewing tobacco, Big Chief, by the prop manager for his scene when Ralphie is dreaming of being a sheriff confronting Black Bart. Afterwards, he got sick for an hour on set. They thought it was better idea to give him raisins to chew to make the brown spit instead of real chewing tobacco. Oh, you think? You think it was better not to give a 12-year-old child real chewing tobacco? Or you probably could have just taken chewing gum and put some food coloring on it. I mean, come on, man. That was kind of messed up. I'm glad they went with the raisins, I guess. The people of Cleveland were incredibly cooperative during filming, donating antique vehicles from every corner of the city. These vintage vehicles helped to enhance the authenticity of the production design. During the filming in downtown Cleveland, the Antique Automobile Club members whose cars were used were given a route to follow on Public Square. They were instructed to continue circling the square until otherwise instructed. Road salt was a major concern for the car owners, and the cars were pressure washed after each day's filming and parked underground beneath the terminal tower. Inspired by the creation of the show, this inspired the creation of the show, The Wonder Years, in 1988. And yeah, you can see the similarities right away when you watch The Wonder Years. I loved that show when I was growing up. I watched most of the seasons of The Wonder Years, but yeah, I really love that show. And you can see how this movie inspired The Wonder Years. Ralphie says that he wanted the Red Ryder BB gun 28 times. An elaborate fantasy sequence in which Ralphie joins Flash Gordon to fight Ming the Merciless was filmed but dropped from the final cut. Man, I want to see that fantasy sequence. The major award that was based on a real lamp and illuminated knee-high logo. I think that's how you say it. Knee-high, N-E-H-I, knee-high. I'm sure you heard of this soda. So the real lamp was based on an illuminated knee-high logo. Knee-high is a soda brand that used a woman's leg as part of its ad campaign. A woman's is standing beside the soda, but you can only see her bare legs and high heels. The department store in the Santa scene is the High Bees in downtown Cleveland. It became Dillard's in 1992 and closed January 7th, 2002. It is now home to Jack's Casino. Oh, how the world turns. Bob Clark's success with the teen sex comedy Porky's from 1981 allowed him to make a movie he wanted to make. Without Porky's, there would have been no Christmas Story. So Porky's had did good work. When the character Scud Farkus first appears, the wolf music from Sergei Prokofiev. Hold on, it's a name. It's a name. Hold on a second. Prokofiev's. I think it's Prokofiev's. So the music from Sergei Prokofiev. I already messed it up. I messed it up immediately. Sergei, Prokofiev. You know what I'm saying. It's Sergei. So the music from Sergei's Peter and the Wolf plays in the background. The name Farkas is derived from the Hungarian word for wolf. According to Bob Clark and the Daisy Rifle historians on the documentary on the history of Red Ryder BB Gun on the special edition DVD, the model rifle as described by Ralphie in the film is a mistake. When Gene Shepard originally wrote the story of Ralphie and his gun for the story, In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash, he had written about the gun based on his childhood experiences, but had misremembered the details of the Red Ryder BB gun. Specifically, the weapon did not have a compass or this thing which tells time, as Ralphie refers to the sundial. Those features were part of another BB gun model made around the same time. According to Clark, no one realized this mistake until it came time to produce the gun for the film, and they were informed by the Daisy Rifle Company of the era. So the gun in the film is actually a custom-made hybrid to match Shepard's recollection. So this is actually a special gun that at the time of filming, no one could actually get. Gene Shepard's book, In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash, which the film is partly based on, is a collection of short stories that Shepard wrote for Playboy magazine during the 1960s, including the ones about the tongue sticking to the flagpole and eating Christmas dinner at a Chinese restaurant. This subplot of the mangled dog constantly harassing the old man was taken from another of Shepard's short story collections, Wanda Wiki's Night of Golden Memories and Other Disasters. In that book, the character of Ralph is about 17 years old. So it's amazing how they put this movie together from a collection of stories, but also not to skip over this, people really did read Playboy for the articles. Finally, in 2012, a stage musical adaptation of this movie opened on Broadway. One of the co-producers was Peter Billingsley, who as a child played the lead role as Ralphie in the movie. As an adult, Billingsley transitioned into producing such movies as Break Up in 2006, Four Christmases in 2008, and Iron Man in 2008. A Christmas Story, the musical, was the first stage play or musical he produced. So that's it for the trivia. And up next is that we find out what the critics thought. I hope that you enjoyed trivia. I hope that you learned something. Leave me a comment or let me know on social media what you thought about the trivia for this movie. And we're going to transition now to see what the critics thought. And we're back. Check out what the critics thought of A Christmas Story. The critics gave it a 90%. The audience gave it 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. IMDb score was 7.9 out of 10. This is one of the highest IMDb scores I have ever seen. It's rarely this high, and it tends to be this high for earlier classic movies. I think there are a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia over some of the earlier movies. They're much more harsh on the current hits. Even movies that are released today that are critically acclaimed don't receive too high a score on IMDb reviews. So, Rita Kempley from the Washington Post, she wrote, "It's a nostalgic comedy featuring a family of eccentrics who lovingly celebrate the holidays and life itself in Midwestern America in the 1940s." And that is true. It's rather a descriptive review. It's not really saying that if it's good or bad. It's really just stating a matter of fact. Ralph Novak from People magazine wrote, "It won't make anyone forget Miracle on 34th Street, but this is pleasant fare as far as holiday films go nowadays, which isn't very far." Interesting enough, to compare it to Miracle on 34th Street, I don't know how often I've seen this movie, probably once or twice. It's okay, but this movie is much better than Miracle on 34th Street, and it's not meant to make people forget Miracle on 34th Street. What this movie is meant to invoke is nostalgia for their own Christmases, not remembering Christmases from other movies or how they were depicted. Miracle on 34th Street is a whole other feel. It's a whole other thing. It's not meant to invoke nostalgia like A Christmas Story. J.R. Jones from Chicago Reader wrote, "Shepard provides the voiceover of the grown hero narrating, and his prominence on the soundtrack forces Clark to focus on visual humor, resulting in some wild R-gang style slapstick." And that is true. The voiceover, as I've said before, is outstanding. Finally, Vincent Canby from the New York Times wrote, "There are a number of small, unexpectedly funny moments in A Christmas Story, but you have to possess the stamina of a pearl diver to find them." And I strongly disagree with that. I think this film is both humorous and funny throughout. It's like if you're not laughing out loud, then you're very much entertained in the intervening moments of not laughing. But the thing is, humor is subjective, so it's not going to make everybody laugh. So there are things about this movie that didn't make this guy laugh. So it happens. It's comedy. That's what happens with comedies. So finally, A Christmas Story is, as of this recording, available on HBO Max, as well as A Christmas Story Christmas. I kept waffling. I didn't know if it was on HBO Max or on Netflix. Now I'm looking at my notes, and yes, it's on HBO Max. That's it for today. This is our final episode of the year. We hope that you have a very Merry Christmas, a great Hanukkah, a chillin' Kwanzaa, and happy holidays in general. We'll be back next year on January 9th, starting off with a bang with our 100th episode special with a very special guest. And we'll be talking about one of my favorite movies, Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Follow us on Twitter or TikTok at Backlick Cinema, or on Facebook or Instagram at Backlook Cinema Podcast. And if you're on Mastodon, at Backlook Cinema at mstdn.party. Don't forget that you can contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlookcinema.com. One last time, if you like this show, then please help us grow. To do this, you can subscribe to the show, rate us, or write a review on Spotify, Podchaser.com, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app. Believe me, it matters. Be safe, share a movie from yesteryear with your family, hug your loved ones this holiday season, and if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.